Welcome, everyone. Ooh, hey, that's really loud. Welcome to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. Our meeting is called to order. Thank you all for being here, and a special thanks to Chancellor Tidings for welcoming us at TBR. We will first call the roll. No one is joining virtually, we have one person joining virtually. So since you're joining virtually, please just a reminder to let us know whether anyone else is in the room with you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Here.
Commissioner Allman?
Present.
Commissioner Dieter?
Here, and no one is in the room.
Commissioner Matlock? Commissioner Perry?
Here.
Commissioner Rader? Commissioner Ragsdale?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Stafford?
Present.
Commissioner Wood?
Here.
Secretary Hargett?
Here.
Treasurer Lillard?
Here.
Comptroller Mumpower? Commissioner Morrison?
Nathan James here.
Chairwoman, you have 11 voting members present and 12 members present.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Our first item is the adoption of today's agenda. With no questions or objections, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Aye.
Commissioner Allman?
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter?
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock? Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Stafford? Commissioner Wood?
Aye.
Secretary Hargett?
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard?
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 11 ayes.
Excellent. Thank you. Seem to have a rogue mic. It's okay. Well. Next, we would like to hear from Dr. Janet Smith, President of Columbia State Community College, to provide a system report.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gentile, for the opportunity to be here, and Madam Commissioner, Chair, and the Commissioner members. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about Columbia State Community College. In January of every year, we have a legislative breakfast. It's on the last Friday of the month, and it's kind of a state of the college address. So I have pulled from that to share some information with you today. A lot of it is in data, and then just with a very few highlights of some of the things going on at the college. Assisting me also is Dr. Amy Spears Bridges, and she usually does all the clicking so that I don't go forward and backward several times and slow down the process. So she kind of keeps me on target so that I'm not behind this podium that long. So we'll start out with, we are celebrating our 60th anniversary. We were formed in 1965, approved by the Department of Education, but had our groundbreaking in 1966, and our groundbreaking was done by Lady Bird Johnson, accompanied by her husband, President Johnson. We like to say accompanied by because she was the person who did the delivery. We are the first community college in the state, and we're very proud of that heritage. Our mission is in front of you, nurturing success and positively changing lives through teaching, learning, and service. Our vision is to be the first choice for the citizens in our region. And we benchmark that. We use THEC data as to what counties our students or what colleges they're going to. And I'm proud to say that out of those 9, usually 7, Columbia State is the college of choice. In Williamson, we compete with UT, so we feel pretty good. We come in second to UT. So we do benchmark that. Our strategic pillars is one college, a student-ready college, and a community-ready college. And our strategic plan is based off of those pillars. So a little bit about data. We use 14-day data as opposed to end-of-semester data. And we've been using that for a number of years, and I know that as we're looking to the future, it's been more of end of semester. But to maintain the integrity of our data and know what our growth is, we have continued with 14-day data for this presentation. As you look here, you've got our enrollment, and you'll see this little nice gentle curve there where we went up, and you'll see that height of that curve is just before COVID, which was our largest enrollment. It dropped from there, but it's been growing steadily. If you notice, too, that the gold part there has a little bit more growth to it than some of the others, and that's dual enrollment, and I will touch on that more as we go forward. You do have that we were 6,007 students for our 14-day enrollment for this fall. Full-time versus part-time enrollment. Our part-time is at 59%, as you can see, full-time at 47%. And you'll notice there's been a change after COVID. Prior to COVID, we were more full-time than we were part-time, and that growth has changed since then. And the past 2 years, there has been a considerable growth in part-time students. Part of that growth is with dual enrollment, and you'll see from that when we get into it, the number of dual enrollment students that have been there. Part of it is with adult students as well. The enrollment for our Tennessee Promise, you can see since COVID has begun to come and grow again. We are pleased to see that enrollment and work with all of our high schools to increase it. And then in Tennessee Reconnect, that one is outstanding. We're not sure what caused that huge increase for this fall. We do know that we did some different things in terms that we had a list of adults in our community, and we sent letters to them that notifying them of the opportunities through Adult Reconnect. We also did a lot more virtual sessions and individual types of counseling. But the growth has been tremendous, and we're continuing to explore that to see how and what might have caused that impact. The age of our student population, if you look at the trend line, we're trending up in age, and particularly this year we went from 20 to 22.8. That has that adult population built in there. It made a change. We are traditionally a traditionally aged student population, but it's good to see the number of adults that are returning. Male-female enrollment. This we've always had, for many, many years, more females than males. One of the concerns as we've looked at this is where we line up with the national average. We are lower in males than the national average. So it's an area of concern that we are talking about as well. How are we reaching our male population and how we might increase that male population. Race, ethnicity, we have traditionally been more of a white population for our student body. The interesting things here is to look at the Hispanic population. If you look at the bar lines and how that one has grown, somewhat concerned about the African American population has not grown as to trend it up as much as we think that it should. So it's an area too we are considering. Our Asian population is beginning to increase as well. The Asian population is particularly more prevalent at our Williamson campus than our other locations. In terms of dual enrollment, you can see how the dual enrollment has changed. We had a total of 1,818 students in dual enrollment this past fall. That's 166 student growth. And one of the things to think about when we look at dual enrollment, as well as the adult and all that part-time, it takes more personnel to deal with that number of dual enrollment than it does with a first-time full-time degree-seeking student, because you're getting more hours and you're working with that student more. But the personnel time as we grow in dual enrollment is considerable in terms of what we look at in terms of our resources to provide the services that are there. Williamson County has a greater dual enrollment than any of the others, which should be anticipated given the population of that community. And you notice Murray County comes afterwards. Always when we look at our counties and whatever there is in dual enrollment, regular full-time enrollment or whatever, it kind of plays the same, and it plays back against the population of that county and equals out. One of the things I also noticed, the 29 public high schools, again, that is quite a bit of a resource in terms of personnel to work that many high schools and provide that kind of service for dual enrollment. Campus of preference, I put this one in just to show that all of our campuses and how the enrollment is lined out. And you can see you're almost equal between Williamson and Columbia. And when we built the Williamson campus, we felt like that was going to be the the way that it would go, because you've got Spring Hill in the middle, and the people are going to grow both north and south and equal out, even though Williamson has a much higher population than Murray does. Benchmark data, some of the data we really benchmark ourselves on. One is progression, looking fall to spring, and the other one is fall retention, fall to fall. And I call your attention to looking at the last 4 years, and it's been straight uphill, which is really a very nice thing, a percentage increase for the last 3 years. Not where we want to be in the end, but where we're still going is to move forward with that increase in our progression and retention. Comparing it to the national average with retention, you can see we're at 59% compared to 55% nationally. We're pleased that we're above the national, but we are continuing to grow and work to increase that percentage. Degrees and certificates awarded, we are principally more of a transfer in terms of degrees. You can see 58% of our degrees in a transfer program. 25 then are in a career program, whether it's in health science, engineering, IT, or the like. 17% certificates. One of the significant things here is to look at that trend line again in terms of our 3-year graduation rate as moving up and 3% over last year. So we are very pleased to see that continued growth, and think that to us that demonstrates some of the things that we're doing on campus to improve retention as well as graduation. This one is now moving into just sharing a few things about the college that might be of interest. As I did the PowerPoint for the legislative breakfast, I themed it this year the power of connections, because as I thought about community colleges and thought about Columbia State in general, is that so much of what we do is about connecting, whether it's connecting to students, connecting to the community, connecting to businesses and industries, but it's about building connections, and it's through those connections that the college growth occurs. So one of those connections was connecting students to the future. So what are we doing as we look at that? We looked at programs, what kind of programs we have. This fall, we will first start a 7x7 where our business tech program will be in 7 weeks for a course, and then they'll pick up the next 7 weeks. That particular format has been very successful in terms of retention of students. So we're excited to start that this fall. We have several new certificate programs starting, including data analytics, artificial intelligence, and as we open the SR2C, robotics. And then at our Lawrenceburg campus, we are starting an ENST, an engineering systems program, our first career program to move that direction. And then you can see what we're looking at in the future in terms of logistics. And we're very pleased working in Williamson County with the Williamson County Innovation Center, where we're working along with MTSU and Belmont with the cybersecurity. So a lot in terms of looking at what's new coming in careers with our students and how we can service those. The other thing in terms of this type of connection is the number of apprenticeships. We have a very strong program with GM in terms of apprentices and in their Journey Persons training program. We've been there for a number of years. We're in process now working with Ultium Sales and development of an apprenticeship program for them. Last year we did do 2 pre-apprenticeship training programs for educators, one with Murray County and one with Lawrence County, and then just traditionally looking at all the internships that we have, as well as clinical affiliations. The next area is connecting to educations and communities, whether it is high schools, whether it's universities, or TCATs. So the one I want to highlight here is in TCATs. And as we look at TCATs, we have quite a bit of involvement as a college with our sister institutions, the TCATs. In Clifton, we have had Clifton on the TCAT camp on our campus there for a couple years with one of their programs. Our enrollment at that particular campus has declined as the population because we've principally been transfer there. The need for additional technical programs at that area was there. We worked with TCAT Crump. They wanted to do more technical programs. So we transitioned the ownership of that facility over to TCAT Crump so they could increase those number of programs there. We are staying in 2 classrooms, so we continue to do our part as well. So we're really excited about that. The community is very excited about the new programs that they have in that area. The Williamson campus, we work with TCAT Dixon, and they are there with an LPN program as well as a graphics design. And that came about as we opened our arts and technology building a year and a half, 2 years ago. As we move on to TCAT Hohenwald and TCAT Pulaski, we'll be opening on the Columbia campus, the Southern Regional Technology Center this fall. That facility will have in it also TCAT Hohenwald offering an LPN program and an automotive program, and TCAT Pulaski with a welding and HVAC. This is the first time we've had these programs in the Columbia area, and they are strongly sought after and very highly regarded in our community. Very pleased to see these come together. In terms of connecting to the community, many things we do out in our community with performance series and other types of activities. But the thing I wanted to highlight too when we think about community is how we work with the community at large, the national community, and where in terms of grants. And so as we look at it in grants, we want to hit the next one, name. 2 grants I want to point out is that we just received a FIPSI grant. We're very pleased with that grant, and it's a $2 million grant over 4 years. It is to set up an AI office on the campus, and we'll hire a director that will be working with our faculty and our staff in terms of what AI is, how we integrate it into our campus, how we look at what the future is, and what kind of programs to build around that. So we're excited about that. And the other is a THEC program in terms of the Rural Health Cares Pathway, and that is for our EMS students and for LPN students to transition into a nursing program. And then connecting place to student. And I think about when connecting place, I think about connecting our campuses and how we build our campuses and how we lay them out to meet our need. One of those is the SRTC, the Southern Regional Technology Center, which you have a prototype of in front of you, and that is going to be the largest building on the campus. You can see the programs there that go in it, and we're excited about that because our nursing programs have been, and our health programs have been in facilities that are nowhere where they need it to be on that Columbia campus to provide the educational environment that our students deserve. They come out with great scores and everything in the end, but the environment's not the best. This provides so much more access for our faculty to share with our students in terms of what it's like in real life. And so we're very pleased for that and appreciate the approval of THEC many years back for that money to be available to do this. And it is truly a full career technical area. So that's what I brought today to share with you. In conclusion, Columbia State's always about student success and student accomplishment. And with that, I say I'm finished, and I'm take any questions that you might have. But again, thank you for the opportunity of sharing Columbia State with you.
Reverend James.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of K-12, thank you so much for the work on the dual enrollment. It's a tremendous program. At the same time, it's a program which will always have to live within its means. And so I wanted to ask, which courses are most prevalent? Are we seeing, freshman English, college algebra, these types of courses, or anecdotally, if you look at it kind of system-wide, sometimes it's courses that aren't necessarily as hard-hitting as that end up in dual enrollment. I was wondering what that looks like in institutions.
For most of ours, it's still the English, the history, and the math for the dual enrollment. Now, we've also started a middle college with one high school as well, which is a good relationship there, and we're finishing giving them the first 2 years, or they're graduating while they're in high school. But yeah, I'd go back. It's basically the history, the math, the English that they take.
And as the chair well knows, we're big fans of the middle college programs. Getting the system kind of out of the way of the student's trajectory, I think, is incredibly important, and that only happens through strong K-12 and higher ed.
We've had a middle college program at Fairview High School for a number of years, And we're very pleased, and that's more of a technical type program, but they can go out with either a certificate in engineering systems or mechatronics, or then graduate with us and transfer on to a university. We've had several go into Chattanooga. We have a relationship with them in terms of transfer articulation.
Yeah, one more question, Madam Chair. Also, on the question of transfers, how much reverse transfer does does this institution?
I don't know the exact numbers. I know that we get a considerable amount of reverse transfer. A lot of work is done in our admissions office of tracing some students, letting them know that they've got that opportunity to come back. But I couldn't give you the number or percentage.
Well, I just think it's great that it's being pursued, and you run an excellent institution. Thank you.
Any questions? Gentile.
I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm having a hard time.
Have you done, like, have you done marketing for Reconnect? Anything that has led to that increase in adult students? I'm curious.
And where did that group come from? Do you recall?
The list that TBR provided,
Yeah.
and then we also did digital marketing.
Yeah, TBR provided us a list of adults in our region that might be able to take advantage of the Adult Reconnect if they so chose. So we sent letters to all of those individuals. So I think that was a big thing. We did additional marketing through billboards and through social media. And then our Adult Reconnect person went out to various industries and met with folks, and then held sessions on campus called Adulting 101, and that went very well. So I think it was a combination of all of it, but to say which one was the strongest, I don't know. I think the letters did have a significant impact.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I could use that Adulting 101 class still sometimes too. But thank you, because this has been something that's been on our minds. There was an OREA report under the comptroller's office that came out recently, or it's about to come out about Reconnect, just identifying, a need for more marketing and communication. And our office does a lot with that too. So we look forward to learning from you guys on what you're doing. So thank you.
We appreciate all the support we get. Thank you.
Thank you. And also thanks to Joel from TBR, who just came up here again. All the tech support we have, it's just really appreciative. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? President Smith? I have two questions, actually. One tied to middle college. Are there any conversations happening at the state level with organizations like TBR to talk about how do we increase middle colleges? Is that an interest?
I would say certainly from our perspective it is. That's, we had to pass a special law to allow us to meet outside of Nashville, and we've been hosted by several community colleges, and the first was Rowan State, and the reason why was because not only the work of the ERIC Commission that you sat on, but also a very keen interest in this, recognizing that our educational system in Tennessee is about the whole state of Tennessee, and not about this and that and this and that, right? Not the little silos that we get into. So I know we talk about it all over the place and wherever we can with anybody that'll bother to listen. So we love to talk about. I know Dyersburg has got it. We've got it Rowan State. We've got it in Northeast State Community College is doing a tremendous job with that. And my understanding is Austin P as well. They've hosted us, and one of the reasons that we went there was because of that program. So we'll do anything we can to be available.
President Smith, are there any other districts that have reached out to talk about middle colleges, or how does that normally come to life?
Usually, as we're working with dual enrollment, if there's an interest in the high school or the question comes up, then the discussion begins. The one that we have with Lewis County, Hole and Wall, the principal there was very interested. He had heard Middle College, we went together. And it works well there because it's a really joint venture between the high school and the college. Both have to invest in it for it to work. We have Williamson County that is interested in it. They're not wanting to start just yet, but they're looking at how they will build that program together.
Thank you. I had two questions about Reconnect. One, what is the profile of the increase of students? You said there's an initial 166 Reconnect students that came in this year, or just in general, what's the profile look like for those students?
I don't have a full profile of them. We have not pulled that data to look at it. I would say part of that may be also we've had an increase in that apprenticeship program with GM, and that is an older adult as well. So that would flow into it, but I'd hate to venture a guess.
All right. Are there coordinated efforts? What sort of coordinated efforts are there between THEC and TBR in promoting the Reconnect?
We have an adult learner team on our staff, led by Jessica Gibson. That's, the Navigate Reconnect team works hand in glove with our community colleges. There's always opportunity for us to work even closer together. That's been identified in the ORA report as well. But TBR's office, the community colleges, and ours through our more than a dozen navigators across Tennessee point the way to the community colleges and universities as well. So work quite closely, but we're always developing that relationship.
Thank you so much, President Smith, for being here. We really appreciate your report.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
I got so excited about hearing President Smith's report that I totally skipped over 2 agenda items. One, we need to talk about public comment. Dr. Gentile, have we received any requests?
No public comment, Madam Chair.
Okay. Next, we need to approve the minutes. With no questions or objections, I'll entertain a motion in a second to adopt the minutes from not only November 12th of last year, but also January 16th of this year.
Motion to approve.
No objection, we'll take a roll call vote. Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford, Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. In looking at today's agenda, I think it really reflects a lot of the full scope this commission has, from institution authorization, new academic programs, campus master plans, revised operating budget, the quality assurance funding standards, and lottery funds. But beyond these individual action items today, today's work connects to something much larger, which is Tennessee's competitiveness. Tennessee's economy is continually growing. We're very lucky as a state for that. Employers are hiring, and the demand for talent, whether it is healthcare, advanced manufacturing, technology, logistics, education, public service, the list goes on and on. It's all accelerating. The question in front of us is not whether Tennessee will compete. The question is whether we will have the workers to win. And that's where this commission plays a unique role. Because we don't just oversee policy, we also shape incentives. We often hear what gets measured gets done. And in higher education, I would add, what gets funded gets prioritized. What gets prioritized gets built. Through the outcomes-based funding formula and the quality assurance funding, we're communicating clearly and consistently what Tennessee expects of our institutions. We should be equally clear-eyed about the signals we send to students. If outcomes-based funding formula is how we align institutions to results, lottery-funded aid is how we ensure Tennesseans can afford to pursue those results and fill those jobs. The Tennessee Education Lottery Scholarship Portfolio, which we've all received a memo on today, is not just financial aid, it's workforce infrastructure. These programs are funded through the Lottery for Education Now, counts for more than $500 million annually. and we support more than 169,000 students each year. At the same time, the projections adopted by the State Funding Board indicate that the revenues may not be sufficient in the coming years. That combination, scale plus pressure, makes today's discussion important, and it underscores why this commission's stewardship really matters. When we reward student progression, credential completion, job-aligned programs, and research productivity, we're doing more than just distributing dollars. We're reinforcing what gets prioritized. We are strengthening the alignment between education and the labor market, the workforce that continues to drive the success of this state. That matters because the future of today's economy depends on a simple reality. Employers go where talent is. And talent is built through systems that reward outcomes, not just activity. As we consider today's agenda items, obviously I think the agenda item about the lottery is new information for many of us. I hope that we keep a shared focus on building the capacity Tennessee needs for the next decade, preparing students for the high-demand fields and upward mobility, and ensuring that our institutions are incentivized to deliver results, not just enroll students, but graduate them into opportunity. Because in the end, these decisions are not just administrative, they're directional. With that, I'd like to proceed with Dr. Gentile's report.
Thank you, Chairwoman Scarlett. Of course, it's an honor to be with you guys today. I am saving my PowerPoint and my podium time for the lottery discussion later today. But I do want to just highlight a couple of things about where we're going this year, what we're tracking in the legislative session right now. Before I do, I want to thank again Chancellor Tidings for hosting us here today. Always so willing to do so. I appreciate that. President Hargrave is in the audience. He's got an agenda item, academic program. President Licari, always good to see you. We got President Tracy Hall here as well with her academic program. You heard from President Janice Smith too. New staff appointments. I'd like to recognize Jordan Parrish. She's not in the room, I believe, today, but she's a new Veterans Education Specialist, ensuring that the VA benefits across all of our institutions are implemented effectively. We also have Janice Perez. Janice, our legal assistant, hello. She just joined us about a few weeks ago. And then Hope Murphy, you were in the audience. Hi, Hope. Hope is our Capital Facilities Policy Analyst. You might recognize for some time we've had a pretty big footprint in Capital. We've had sometimes 3 architects. 2 of those architects have left us for either retirement or working for the State Office of Architect. Under Brenda, we still have architect on staff, but we've pivoted that position, one of those positions, to focusing on an analyst role. The constitutional officers, you'll be seeing her at the State Building Commission in some months to come. Looking at the year ahead, you all did approve our strategic master plan, and we are under the gun to get that done before my chief strategy officer, Amanda, gave birth. She gave birth about 2 weeks ago to baby Piper, and she's healthy and they're all doing well. But our next steps for this year are to implement the strategic plan, to set the goals, to get onto our campuses, and to imbue the strategic plan across all of higher education. I've got a meeting with TECUA and the presidents next week to discuss it. This is going to be my roadshow for some time, but I want to hit on some of the things that relate to our master plan already that are underway. Direct admission, this is a pilot program that we announced last year. This is where Governor Lee sends letters of admission to high school seniors across Tennessee, and it is a pilot program. We sent it to about 45,000 seniors, this letter. The letter has multiple measurements in it. Some letters just have you're admitted to these institutions based on your ACT. Others pair that with financial aid, and others pair that with financial aid and personal assistance and guidance. Brett Gibson has been dedicating all of his time to this in our partnership with the more than 50 institutions who've signed on to this. Those letters went out in November and December, and of this 45,000, 6,000 students have claimed a spot at our institutions, which is honestly more than I anticipated at this stage. It takes them about 7 minutes to go to the website and click through the institutions that they want to enroll in. And we look forward to evaluating and studying what that means and how that's improved college going. I am grateful that we did this in a pilot status because uncovered lots of kinks in the process. And we're learning our lessons this year. And as we look forward to continuing this forward, making sure that it's done so effectively, it's been done so effectively this year, but it could be even better going forward. Nathan James, you asked a question about dual enrollment. Dual enrollment has been growing substantially in Tennessee. It's been growing substantially across the country. Every state right now is grappling with dual enrollment is fantastic, but to what end? Why are we doing dual enrollment? This year, with grant funding, we are exploring a dual enrollment strategic vision in partnership with TBR, our universities, TECUA, State Board of Education, Department of Education, under the Terra Research Group at Vanderbilt. We just had our kickoff last week, and the aim of this is for us as a state to recognize the true reason why we're doing dual enrollment. There are many reasons to do dual enrollment, but what's the right fit for us here in Tennessee to set that strategic vision? This gets to our master plan vision of having strong alignment between K-12 and higher education and making sure that the courses that we are taking in high school for dual enrollment are meaningful to the college pathway. I look forward to seeing this unroll going forward. Last committee meeting, I believe, we had some talk about reduced bachelor degrees, which THEC, the regional accreditor for higher education, just okayed and allowed institutions to produce what are essentially 90 credit hour bachelor degrees, reduced bachelor degrees. For your knowledge, a bachelor degree is 120 credit hours otherwise. Secretary Hargett has been a champion of this work for some time, and we're grateful that THEC has moved forward with allowing universities to experiment. We have heard already from universities in Tennessee that want to start a reduced credit hour degree. This is high on my list of priorities because it helps students get through quicker for those who want that experience. We are committed to bringing forward a policy in May. We have a task force right now with higher education, a policy in May that essentially sets the stage for approving these academic programs should the commission wish to do so going forward. A caveat is that these cannot be called bachelor degrees. That's THEC's placement on that. They need an alternative name. It could be applied bachelor degrees. That's already a term used here in Tennessee. It could be a number of different things. We hope to set the standard for what that's called here in Tennessee. I look forward to having those discussions moving forward. And Chairwoman Scarlett already previewed the lottery portfolio conversation. This will be our top agenda item this year, what my team is working towards all year going into next year. I will bore you with numbers later today, but I think it's important to know those numbers because I do not want this to be considered a back burner position that we're in right now. And so I look forward to having that conversation with you today and for the rest of this year. Legislation that is on our minds right now that we are tracking, we are following, we're working with institutions, we're working with legislators on. Number one is HB 2095. This is sponsored by Chairman White and Chairman White of the Education Committees in House and Senate. I did provide you a primer on this back in January, I believe. This is a bill that we pulled together and asked the Education Committee chairs to sponsor. It is largely a cleanup bill. When I became executive director, I got a number of reports from our institutions that were statutorily required that I know have never seen the light of day in general. And I asked our institution partners, like, what is there value to this report to you? And oftentimes, no. So we worked with our partners in institutions and said, what are some of the outdated reports that are required of you in statute? And we'll work to see if we can get those off the books to save that time. There's also a bit in this bill. Last year, the bill put forward that THEC drafted was to allow for, when I move on, for you to have a executive session to determine how to select the next executive director. That's something that our higher education institutions were able to do. And this bill will also allow for you to go into the executive session to talk about personnel, to evaluate me. We think that's important for you to be able to do and do so in a candid way. And then also a part of the bill that's really important to me and the vision of our master plan is to recognize the importance and strengthen transfer between our institutions. We had a provision in the bill that came strong through our master plan conversations last year that we need to recognize transfer institutions, institutions that are transfer friendly, that are really excelling in helping students move on to a university or move on from a TCAT to a community college, and there are some transfer provisions in this bill. A second bill that does have great implications for higher education. This is sponsored by Sapicki on the House side, Representative Sapicki, and Senator Watson on the Senate side. It's HB 1833. The summary of this bill, if you were to see it online, talks about our commission specifically. But there's much more to this bill that hits on all of higher education. The part that hits on our commission is a shift from governor-appointed commission members towards General Assembly appointed commission members. Right now, 6 of you are appointed by the governor. Under this bill, that would go down to 3. And as governor-appointed members roll off, General Assembly would take on the appointments of those next 3. There will still be other 3 that are appointed by General Assembly and the constitutional officers on the commission as well. This is something that we've seen in higher ed, something we've seen in State Board of Ed over the last 8 years, the subtle shift away from governor appointees to General Assembly appointees. But there are more aspects of this bill that hit on the functions of higher education in general. It calls on THEC to set graduation rate targets for our institutions, on-time graduation targets. Last year's bill allowed for you to set an alternative range for an institution should they come to us for tuition needs above the cap that we have. This bill only allows an institution to come back and appeal for higher tuition if they are increasing on their graduation rate that we set as a target, or they've met that target already. Second, it puts into the outcomes-based funding formula for the university sector a 4-year graduation rate. Right now it's a 6-year graduation rate. We've already been advocating for this already. We see that this is the direction we're going anyhow, but this is already in this bill. And it also introduces, for the first time into the community college sector, a graduation rate for our outcomes funding formula. That would be a 2-year graduation rate. Yesterday, for the operating budgets conversation, we talked a lot about out-of-state tuition revenue or tuition revenue in general, how that's been growing for some time. The provision of this bill calls for institutions to tell THEC how they're using out-of-state tuition revenue to keep costs lower for in-state students. And then the last provision that was actually taken out this week, but I think it's important to speak to the symbolism of it, would have required that courses that are taught online that have no in-person alternative have a 75% cost adjustment, so that tuition is 75% of what in-person classes are is online. Some institutions have online premiums that go above the tuition of in-person. Others are right at the same level. Some do provide discounts already. That was pulled from this bill because of the substantial fiscal note on it and how that would have impacted our institutions. Nonetheless, Representative Sapicki made clear that he really wants to see institutions bring down the cost of online education. And then tenure. There are 2 tenure bills that we've been tracking. One was taken off notice this week. It was sponsored by Lafferty and sponsored by Hensley. And if you go to Inside Higher Ed today, you'll see a little blurb about this. That would have revoked tenure completely. And due to a lot of evidence that would greatly disrupt higher education and our ability to attract professors here, Representative Lafferty backed off of that bill. There's another bill sponsored by Representative Zachary and Senator Lowe, that will probably be successful this session. And it speaks to the value of tenure, but it also requires institutions to adopt policies that distinguish tenure decisions from faculty disciplinary actions in order to recognize a need to perhaps move on severing tenured faculty member from the campus if there are some disciplinary actions involved with that, if they break some code of conduct. It also requires institutions to adopt institutional neutrality statements, some of what we've seen before at Vanderbilt, University of Chicago as well, which is essentially institutions not weighing in on politics, allowing for free inquiry of conversation, debate, and thought. Those are the bills that we are tracking right now. There's another bill that we are just now starting to look at that requires the General Assembly to approve all presidential appointees. I'm not as well versed in that bill right now, but we'll know more about that here in the coming days. Any questions about bills that we're following? All right. Last night, Commissioner Stafford asked me, are we going to get back to some institutions here for our commission meetings? And I just want to say in July, we are planning to have a commission meeting at Austin Peay State University. And Commissioner Wood, we're looking at November for a meeting at UT Chattanooga as well. So we'll get back on the campus. And then one last announcement. Leah Llewellyn, she's not here today, but President Tucker is going to make an announcement today at Tennessee State University. Leah is our Senior Director of Institutional Compliance. She's been over the audit function of all institutions for financial aid for some time here. She has been a rock star on our staff. Under Commissioner Smith's leadership as Executive Director, Leah had a vision that would pivot us from being not just an audit team, but also to have what was, I think Bob Smith said to me, was like a SWAT team, where we bring in former financial aid directors who know our policies and go to institutions and support those institutions that struggle to meet the regulations that are built there to help students. We've got a great team that is ready and poised to go to institutions to help them. That team has been dedicated to helping and supporting Tennessee State University for the last year and a half, under Leah's leadership. Leah was on campus at Tennessee State University every day for the last year and a half, and unfortunately that was too much because President Tucker really appreciated her and is announcing to his board in about an hour that she's going to be the special advisor to President Tucker, overseeing more than just financial aid. We are sad to lose her. Honestly, it helps me sleep better at night knowing that President Tucker is surrounding himself with a fantastic leadership team. But we're going to miss her, and I look forward to seeing her succeed in a very different role at Tennessee State University. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Yeah, good stuff. So our first action item is the consent agenda. There are 2 items on the consent agenda, and without objection, we will vote on them as a set. If there are no questions or objections, I'll entertain a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
Second.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Ullman, Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Motion passes. On our regular calendar items, the first on the agenda is the new academic programs. MTSU Film and Television Master of Fine Arts, Southwest Tennessee Community College Artificial Intelligence Technology, Associates of Applied Science, Tennessee THEC Master of Social Work, and the University of Memphis Applied Science Bachelor of Applied Science. If there are no objections on these, we will vote on them as a slate. Commissioner Almond, since you're the chair, the Academics Access and Student Success Committee, can you give us a bit of an overview?
Yesterday, the 4 academic programs were presented to the Academics Access and Student Success Committee. Each presentation sparked great questions, positive discussion among the committee members, and it was a very productive conversation overall. I'm pleased to share that all 4 programs were approved by the committee. If we have any questions, I would like for Dr. Catherine Brackett to please come forward. That's okay, Madam Chair?
Any further discussion or questions? Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Ullman,
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford.
Aye.
Commissioner Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Hargit. Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
Excellent. The motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the Pellissippi State Community College Campus Master Plan. Treasurer Lillard, would you mind providing us an overview, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, your Finance and Operations Committee met yesterday and considered the master plan, received presentations on it, and recommended it to the commission for approval.
Any questions from the commission?
I move its adoption.
That's correct. I did say Pellissippi, but it is Columbia. Yeah, my bad. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion and a second on this campus.
I move approval for adoption.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett.
Aye.
Commissioner Allman.
Aye.
Commissioner Dieter.
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock. Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Commissioner Rader.
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford. Commissioner Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Hargit.
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
It's like jumping all over the place, Commissioner Ragsdale, so I want to go back to the other one. My apologies. Motion does carry, so thank you all very much. We'll go back to Columbia State Community College Master Plan. Treasurer Lillard, if you wouldn't mind.
Again, Madam Chair, your Finance and Operations Committee met yesterday and considered this master plan and received presentations on it by the President and others, and recommends it for approval by the Commission.
Any questions?
I have a question. Did we just approve Pellissippi State or Columbia State? Columbia State. So now we're doing Pellissippi State. Right, okay.
Okay, we've approved Columbia State, now we're doing Pellissippi State. Any questions? Yes, you.
Got a question.
Yes. My apologies.
I actually really like this master plan. I think it does a lot of wonderful things, and at Pellissippi State has some magnificent campuses, and they maintain them very well, and they've done a great job of fundraising. My only comment is this: at the Magnolia Avenue campus, I love the idea of the outdoor spaces that they're being created. It's a very urban campus in an economically challenged area of our community. I'm a little concerned about portables, and I'll tell you why. I know that they are in many cases a necessary evil, and we have to have them. But in some cases, in this particular instance, I think we may be sending, if they're there too long, the wrong signal to our community about, you have a magnificent Hardin Valley campus, you have a magnificent Blount County campus, and for our inner city campus to have portables, I'm just a little bit troubled by that. I know it's better than nothing, but I just wanted to toss that out there so that Chancellor Tidings and her amazing team can just have my opinion on that.
I don't disagree with that comment. I would agree, we should all have beautiful campuses, regardless of whether you're in an urban environment, rural or suburban.
We'll say this, for those of you who may not know, the Magnolia campus was years ago Catholic high school, and the Knox County Commission made a huge step forward in providing funding for Pellissippi State for it to become a campus. So it's got a long, rich history there in the community, and with the outdoor spaces that are planned and other things, it's going to be a spectacular urban campus, but I would be remiss if I just didn't mention that.
Chancellor Tidings, you're recognized.
The only comment I would like to make is the portables are not permanent. That is simply a way for them to transition while they're remodeling. They'll utilize those and then they'll be gone. TBR has a great history of making sure we stay on time and on budget, so they're not going to be there permanently. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll accept a motion.
I move approval.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett.
Aye.
Commissioner Allman. Commissioner Dieter.
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock. Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Commissioner Rader.
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford. Commissioner Wood.
Aye.
Secretary Hargit. Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
Wonderful, motion carries. Next, we're going to talk about the transmission of the 25-26 revised operating budget. Treasurer Lillard, I'll pass it back to you.
Yes, yeah, yesterday your committee on finance and operations met on this item as well and received a presentation by Russell Von Zimmerman, the Director of Fiscal Policy for THEC, and had a spirited discussion about various items in the operating budgets and after consideration, approved them and recommended them to the commission for adoption.
Any questions on this agenda item? Yes.
I don't have a question, but one of the things that I wanted to bring up is related to Table 6, which is the athletics data here. And what I want to do is to make a positive shout out to MTSU for the changes that they've made between the actual 24-25 and the revised 25-26 in reining in the athletics as a percent of the E&G budget. Honestly, there's some math things here that I don't understand, one of which, and I don't need an explanation in this meeting, that they raised the fee, student athletic fee, by a little over $100. And in the revenue generation, that doesn't match up with the kind of enrollment that they had. But I noted that in the athletic budget itself, there was a sort of, is it fair enough to say, a return of around $10 million to the academic side of the house?
Drew Harple, you're recognized.
Appreciate it. Drew Harpool, Interim Vice President for Business and Finance at Middle Tennessee State University. Yes, sir, that's what we're working towards in our budget. It's always one of those challenging things, especially in today's day and age of athletics, to make sure that we're staying around our budget. And so we'll be interested to see in this world with revenue sharing where that ends up. But it's definitely a direction we're trying to push.
Well, I appreciate that, because when we look at tuition boundaries, it's our intent that that tuition is going to enhance the kinds of outcomes that this commission is most interested in: retention, graduation rate, successful accomplishments of one's academic purposes. It is not intended to be blunt about it, to take care of NIL and other kinds of things. Those are nice to have on campus, and they're sometimes important, but they sometimes are out of proportion. And so the whole point here is that I like very much what you did in addressing the way in which you are prioritizing the athletic budget and the athletic budget.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion in a second.
I'll move approval.
Madam Secretary.
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman, Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have agenda item is the quality assurance funding standards. Commissioner Allman, will you provide an overview of yesterday's?
Sure. Yesterday, Dr. Julie Roberts presented the revised quality assurance funding standards, showing the standards more streamlined for the next 5 years. This would be for the 2026-2031 period. The measuring standards would now be to measure specifically academic program quality, student success, and student engagement. The proposed UAF standards passed by the committee as they were presented. Madam Chair, if we have any questions, I would like for Dr. Julie Roberts, please come.
What sort of questions does the commission have? Smith. Dr. Roberts, are you? Oh, there you are. I'm pretty sure you need to.
I appreciate that you and your subcommittee devoted a great deal of time and attention to a sort of major restructuring of the quality assurance funding standard. As this commission works through its strategic plan, and the fact that quality assurance funding, that commitment that we're making today is to 5 years of the distribution of those funds, I think that we ought to allow ourselves a certain amount of flexibility within this 5 years, that if we need to make incremental changes without waiting 5 years, then we have an opportunity to do that. So there's basically 2 requests that Dr. Roberts that I'd like to make, and that one of those is that that we receive regular reporting on how this new formula is being applied, and probably, if I understand the timing for institutions, probably in the fall of each year would be a good time to do that.
We can do it whenever you prefer. I think we had talked about, I'm looking to Dr. Dental here. When do we do it's November meeting, we typically do the OBF updates?
That's correct, where we provided an overlook of the outcomes, how they've changed, how they're moving money. That happens in November.
Okay, so we could absolutely do that. We talked about potentially doing an update on QAF in the academic committee, and then,
Right.
so happy to do that.
Yeah. And then the second part is we do have a strategic plan. And I think it ought to be a practice that things that we decide here be within the understanding of what the plan says that we're going to do. And so if, with permission of the chair and my fellow commissioners, that we ought to have a mapping of how these QAF standards fit within the various dimensions of the strategic plan, so that we know that what money we're distributing here can be traced back to the achievement of our metrics and our goals and objectives with the strategic plan.
Agreed. We are most closely aligned with the QAF standards under alignment, and specifically under the sub piece of meaningful. And so a lot of the criteria directly align with that, but I'm sure there's other areas that this touches on as well. And so happy to present on that if that's something.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Any other questions, Dr. Roberts? I have a comment which I've already shared with you before. I was a little saddened to see that the student engagement was reduced considerably in this new model. I know it's challenging to get feedback and input from students, but it does strike me that if we're here to help students complete programs in an efficient, timely manner, get into the jobs that we have been created for them, then I think that's an unfortunate miss. And so looking at this on an annual basis, I think hopefully we'll be able to provide us some additional inputs and ways that we can have a continuous improvement loop for this particular model.
Yeah, so a couple of things. We did maintain the same points for student engagement. However, to your point, Chair Scarlett, proportionally, since we've streamlined it down to just 3, it makes it a little less equal with the other standards. Secretary Hargett yesterday also mentioned he would be interested in learning about how some of our campuses have used the results from the student engagement to make some improvement or changes. And so we know that has occurred, and so we'll share some of that. But I agree. I mean, we're happy to your point, Dr. Smith, we're happy to look at this before the next 5-year cycle. So we have made pretty significant changes, and so I welcome coming back to the commission after we do our first year of evaluation to see what's working well and if we need to retool it all.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the comments. So we had a pretty good discussion about this during committee yesterday, And now the more I think about it and given that answer and given your interest, I think would be helpful to me. I know you like data, and I say that lovingly. Okay? Right? And I'm interested in data too. I think it'd be interested to see at a very granular level how many respondents, to see some of that really granular information that's coming through those surveys. Because I think one of the things that, if you got 10 surveys back and 3 people mentioned quality of teaching, you might think that 30% of the students on campus had an issue with quality of teaching. But you had a very small respondent size. So that's why I have a little bit of concern about the weight we're placing on it. I even suggested, or comment, I didn't suggest that we do away with the survey, but I said, what if we didn't give any weight to it at all? Which I think would send the wrong message. And I worry about what we're telling people when we reduce the weight of it. But I also think that we need to be able to go back to students like she talked about and say, here's how the campuses responded to the information to help students understand that it does matter. It's no different than an election. If people think their vote doesn't matter, they don't go vote. And if people think their survey responses don't matter, they're not going to respond to a survey.
And we absolutely have that data. We can present it.
Along those lines, are we working with employers and see what they think about our graduates that are filling the jobs? I don't remember seeing that.
Not through the quality assurance funding metrics. We aren't working directly with employers. However, we are, and we put a stronger emphasis on workforce alignment with these revised standards. And we've also put some career readiness components in the requirements that weren't there before. So to get to that same thing, but we haven't had direct employer input, but we know our campuses are working directly with employers. So.
Any other questions or comments about the QAF standard?
I just had a
Yes.
comment. I was just kind of going to build off of what you actually said about the surveys. I think that it's a good thing to place weight on them, but I think that what was echoed here needs to be emphasized more is what the institutions are doing with the surveys. I feel like in my experience as a student, I've kind of seen a lot of people around me be vocal about the same problems from year to year. So I think what would be interesting is like seeing how these problems are communicated by students through these surveys and either what the university is doing about them or just some like more communication between students and university admin about why a change can or can't happen, what has actually happened, just something more streamlined. Because I think the reason that a lot of these surveys like on campuses don't necessarily get as much engagement as they would is because a lot of students feel like they're saying the same issues over and over, and they either don't know if a change has been made or like a change hasn't been made. So I think it's still important to place weight on these. And I mean, even though I'm only on this commission for a year, I too would be interested in seeing like how institutions actually use the survey results and what they actually do with them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I want to thank Paige Elliott for reminding me that I believe it's tables 3.6 and 3.7 of our fact book do report on the results, but not to the level of depth that you're requesting. They report on who exceeds the thresholds, who meets them, who are under them. But we have access to all the underlying data and what it's actually saying about what's happening on campus. So.
And I'll just add to that, Stephen, we also have reports from the campuses on how they have used these. So we'll be able to provide more context.
Well, I'm glad we heard from Commissioner Dieter on that. I think it's really important we hear that student perspective. I would also encourage campuses to engage in their respective student government associations or other campus leadership to get their support in really pushing those surveys out and telling students that campus leadership is paying attention, and that might encourage greater participation in those surveys. Because I'm not trying to be silly here. The broader the response, the more people that participate in that, the better the information is going to be, and it really can give the campus administrations good information to act off of.
That's a great suggestion.
I'm also curious, and Commissioner Dieter, maybe you can share this, or maybe you can, what, are we using kind of modern approaches for this survey with students? Like, is it via text or social, or is it long form? I mean, how do we collect?
They are online surveys, and so and every campus is using different approaches. But it's not a sit in a room and fill out a paper survey. They are online.
I will also say a lot of the surveys that we're given are kind of like incentivized. So we have a big week where we have a lot of surveys like going on and stuff like that. And then they'll do different events to incentivize people doing surveys. So they'll offer like free coffee or something like that. So that's definitely one thing that they've been doing, but they are pretty, I'd say, long form. And especially when students are going through different class changes and things like that, it's kind of difficult to fully collect that data because sometimes it's a bit longer, if that makes sense.
Thank you. I'm just guessing the people sitting in this room are not the audience for these surveys. We might be able to really work with students like Commissioner Dieter to say, how can we make these, how can the presidents think about working with their student bodies to make these surveys a little bit easier to respond to, collect the sort of information that would be beneficial. With that, if there's no other questions for Dr. Roberts, we can go ahead and entertain I will actually move to approve the assurance funding standards plus request annual November timeframe reporting on QAF and standards mapping back to the strategic plan. Any other discussion? Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman. Aye. Commissioner Dieter,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlock, Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
Commissioner Rader,
Aye.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wood,
Aye.
Secretary Hargit, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairwoman, you have 12 ayes.
Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Dr. Roberts. The next item on our agenda is the lottery program memorandum overview. Dr. Gentile provided us an overview of this agenda item, and then Paige Elliott, Acting Chief Strategy Officer, will present on the item and answer any questions. Dr. Gentile.
Thank you. All right. Again, good morning, members of the commission. The point of this presentation, this is the first public presentation. We're going to have more of these in different settings that talk about where we are right now with the lottery program on its funding. And we're also going to have an overview of the lottery program, the growth over time and the expenditures. Because our goal with this section right here is to have you all more familiar with the lottery program as you're now the board of directors over THEC, but also to educate those in the audience on where we are right now. I've chosen a method of talking about this that I hope lands, but it may not. How we talk about this could be done in different ways. I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with you talking about this current situation. There is an executive summary that talks about the funding situation as well. There's an alternative memo that we have as well that goes into more detail. If you'd like that, I can share that with you. So the current lottery outlook. Bear with me as I use this spreadsheet to educate on where we are. A version of this exact table is in the governor's budget. It is in every governor's budget. It talks about the projections of lottery based on the state funding board, and members of our commission, the constitutional officers, sit on that state funding board on approvals of projected revenue and expenditures. I want to first start off by saying, as a good fiscally responsible state, the projections are also oftentimes on the conservative end, so that we can help plan in a responsible way where we're going with our budgets. But I'm going to focus on one spot in particular and walk back from there. My hope for the next 5-10 minutes is to use this table to educate on the levers that go into funding our lottery scholarships and what this means here. This is projecting out to next fiscal year on where we'll be. Again, it's a projection, and I'll go ahead and say on the front end, the numbers right now for this fiscal year are trending above the projections, which is a good thing. But I want to zero your eyes onto this number which is where my eyes went when I saw a preview of this table back in December. That is a negative $141 million reduction in the portfolio. What does this mean? In section 1 of this table for this year, you see the Lottery for Education account expenditures that include over $500 million in scholarships, plus the admin that we have to essentially make the lottery program work. That's at $519 million are the projections for this year. On the conservative end, the net education lottery proceeds, the number that we get from the Lottery Corporation that is to go to that top section, was projected back in November, State Funding Board, to be at $405 million. Automatically, that's a $114 million deficit for this year. Now, I said we're trending above that, but still, stick with me. How do we cover that deficit if it were to occur this year? The first lever is Sports Wagering Construction Fund. Sports Wagering Construction Fund, until this fiscal year, had been pouring into the lottery scholarship program since it began several years ago. Last year, General Assembly passed a bill that was with the voucher program that would redirect sports wagering away from the lottery program and towards a K-12 construction fund for schools that are in distressed counties, and a program to be overseen by the Treasurer's Office. However, there was a provision in that bill that said, if there is a deficit in lottery, that money will first go towards that deficit. So of that $114 million that was projected for this year, a projection of $87.5 million for sports wagering would go towards that 114. And you see that here already being taken into consideration. If there's still a deficit, and there is projected to be here, of $26.5 million is that remaining balance, there is a reserve in the Lottery for Education Reserve for $10 million. There is no requirement in statute to pay that $10 million back. So of that $26.5 million remaining, $10 million would be pulled from that reserve. You see that right here. There is another reserve called the General Shortfall Reserve. It is $100 million in total, and that is in statute. The remaining $16.5 million of that deficit would be pulled from that $100 million reserve. And we are statutorily required to pay that back in future fiscal years. And that occurs on a quarterly basis of about 5% or 5% of net lottery proceeds every quarter, and that next fiscal year would go back towards paying that reserve back. So you see that $100 million, the remaining $16.5 million is pulled out of that reserve down to $83.5, and we are required in that next year to pay it back. And in statute, absent legislative changes, what occurs is that the commission approves pro rata reductions in the lottery portfolio to allow for that scholarship reserve to be paid back. It's about that $16.5 million is about a 3% requirement in pro rata reduction. The Hope Scholarship of $4,500, that's a little over $100 in reduction in that Hope level scholarship. A couple of degrees of freedom that are not oftentimes discussed. Last year, in the Lottery for Education account interest, we garnered about $6.3 million. That's interest that accrues on the lottery revenue as it's been used to spend. 6.3. That fluctuates between 4 and 6 million over the last few fiscal years. And the governor's budget is projected, again, to be conservative, at $75,000. We can anticipate that that number is going to be higher this year to help go towards that balance. But I just want to draw your eyes to that. So going back to the $141 million, again, we would need to pay back that $16.5 million from that reserve. So how do we get to the rest of that 141? Looking at the top section here of the expenditures, That 513 plus the admin cost is $524 million. And we take that away from the net lottery proceeds. Again, the conservative projection for next year, that's $399 million. That's a structural deficit of $125 million. So that's where this number comes from. It's recognizing that there could be a deficit next year, plus paying back that 16.5 million in reserves, 141.5 million. When we first saw this table, I want to credit Tim Phelps on our staff here. His eyes first came to this number here. You'll notice in future years, there's not a projected sports wagering revenue coming to help that deficit. The reason for that, and this is more of a, in theory, not necessarily in practice, and that is, in theory, the law says that that sports wagering is to be there to close a deficit. You shouldn't plan to have a deficit. That's why it's not coming through on this table. That said, if there is a deficit, that number would come in and go towards that deficit. I'm going to pause here to see if there's any questions, because I know I've gotten into the weeds here a little bit.
You mentioned that the possibility of having to reduce the awards on a pro rata basis. Would that be the first time we've ever reduced those awards?
Yes, and I'm looking back to, yep,
Yeah.
got my TSAC friends nodding, yes.
So I just want to, I mean, to me, that really emphasizes the seriousness of the situation.
That's right.
So translating that, reducing the rewards, less students will have access to financial aid or other scholarships, less students will be likely going on to school. And with the enrollment cliff I hear is coming, how is that really going to affect employable citizens?
So in some ways, this is where the enrollment cliff is working against us. And that is in Tennessee, we are having a projected growth in enrollment over time. So more students should be eligible for the Hope Scholarship, for example, in the coming years than are now, because we'll have more seniors graduating into college. But because it'll be a pro rata reduction if it occurs now, it would be lower scholarships, not necessarily fewer scholarships, just lower across the way. But to your question, yeah, this does have implications on access, especially when it's done in a pro rata way, but it's across all the portfolio. Contrast that with taking a surgical approach and looking under the hood, what's working, what's not, and I'll talk more about that in a second, where we can make recommendations as a commission to the General Assembly and to the administration, say next session. Like these are where we're recommending you change the portfolio. We can have an eye on exactly what you're talking about.
Dr. Gentile, if I recall the previous conversation, students who are enrolled today, this would not affect, this would affect those get hit with pro rata reduction, those who enroll in the future, so that those who have budgeted already what they expect to receive assistance would not be. Correct?
My understanding is actually that the pro rata would impact students now who are enrolled. I think in the prior conversation I had with you, we recommended potential changes, like when we recommend potential changes to the General Assembly, we could see that being done in a grandfathered and as they come in. But I'm looking to Scott Sloan here to see if my interpretation agrees with yours, or maybe Pete.
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. So it could impact students who are enrolled now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Gentile, earlier in your presentation, you spoke about a different 90-hour versus a 120-hour bachelor degree.
Yes, sir.
Does that play into at all the hope?
That's interesting. Yes and no. So if students were to go down a 90 credit hour pathway, and again, I need to stress, we don't have those programs yet in Tennessee. If they were to go down a 90 credit hour and get out sooner, that could be a cost savings to the state. However, one of the last changes that was made to the lottery portfolio, this is back in 2022, so I'll back up. Every student has 5 years of Hope eligibility. So they can get, if they're in school for 5 years, they get it for 5 years. If they're in school for 6 years, they just get it for 5 years. A change that occurred in 2022 and this has been positive for many students, is that if you complete your undergrad before those 5 years are up, you can apply your Hope Scholarship to graduate education. And that is costing about, is it $10 million a year? $10 million a year are going towards Hope recipients who are putting it towards graduate education. So if the degree were to reduce for a student down to 90 credit hours, if they were to continue on into graduate school, they would still have Hope paying for that. So it's a blended answer to that question.
So there's not been any consideration that if they get incentivized to graduate earlier, that would affect their numbers? Could there be something looked at relative to that?
Absolutely, sir. And I would say everything is on the table right now when it comes to looking at recommendations. And I'll get outside of order of my slides here. Here's what's going to be happening the next few months. Chairman White of the House and Chairman White of the Senate Education Committees made a request of THEC to put together a report this year that does an overview of all the lottery programs that we have and this growth as a primer and how it works, and then also to provide recommendations. What you have in front of you is part one of that primer. This was due June 30th, but we really wanted to get into the hands of our legislators and you all immediately. Later this year, we'll come back with a report, part two, that has recommendations in it. But we don't want these recommendations to come in a vacuum of staff in Tennessee Tower. One of our commissioners said yesterday, if you ask 100 people how to change the scholarship portfolio, you'll get 100 different answers. That said, we've got a lot of people that we need to consult on this. In addition to you, we're convening all the public presidents next week and Chancellor Tidings to start this conversation on what should we be considering. I've got a meeting and presentation to THEC next week, our Independent College and University Association and their presidents, to kick off that conversation, and so that we can identify exactly what you're pointing to, sir. What are things that could and should be on the table for consideration? Examples that have already been put forward are a last in, first out. I mentioned some changes that occurred in 2022. Are those the first things that we consider reducing in the portfolio? There's looking at student outcomes and workforce preparedness. There's a whole host of things that we can consider. The integration of reduced bachelor degrees should also be one of those too.
Quick question going through here. Dual enrollment grants, we require, Mr. James, I believe, that we require high schools to provide opportunities for dual enrollment. How would that reflect?
Yeah. Dual enrollment has been the one that a lot of people have been looking to because it has been greatly subsidized in the last few years and we've seen great growths in it. Students can get access to a dual enrollment grant as early as freshman year if they're going to a TCAT. Us considering changes to dual enrollment, if we do, there'll be a lot of perspectives that we need to engage in from the higher education side. But K-12, and Mr. James here can go into more details of it, K-12 has now integrated this into their funding formula, their TISA funding, and the expectation for EPSOs and post-secondary success. Mr. James, can you talk to that for a second, please?
I can. Well, and one of the other points that I would make is that K-12 does not have its head in the sand on this. It's these numbers are fairly daunting, and we recognize that this is a shared responsibility that all Tennesseans have. So I think as we work through this process, one of the things that we would need to look at is a core of 4 or 5 courses, and this is just Nathan's brain here, but when I think about it, it makes sense to have certain benchmarks that if our students are going to be taking the dual enrollment, which you couldn't find a bigger advocate for it than I am for sure, but it makes sense that the courses that they're taking, that the state is investing its dollars in, are courses that are going to move the needle for that student to get to the achievement to get to the degree, right? And so, you think about some of the courses that are taken that are, surely you could plug it in and make it someone's elective in the course of an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. But when the dollars get a little tighter, it makes sense that we're taking action to make sure that those courses are the most applicable. And I think that K-12, recognizes that's a step we need to take in terms of our partnership on this to help the entire state address this issue.
So let's exhale a little bit. Where are we right now? As I mentioned, we got Q2 revenue right after December 31st. We'll get Q3 at the end of March. Q2 came in at a level that if you double Q1 and Q2, we're not going to be in that $26.5 million deficit. We will be in a deficit that requires sports wagering to come through, and that's been the case. That was the case last year as well. So if it holds, we are right now not projecting pro rata reductions for next fiscal year. That said, as the numbers project, even in the most conservative projections, there's likely in future years to be a structural deficit. And we must act sooner rather than later. And we've been having conversations with the speakers, with legislators. I know that our constitutional officers have as well. This is on the horizon, and just because this year we might be okay does not mean that we need to rest. We need to address this. And I've had conversations with each and every one of our presidents about this. We all are understanding where we're going and what's happening right now. I've already talked about the plan ahead. We'll have more to speak to this in the near future. And before I hand it over to Paige, I'm going to see if there's any other questions about the financial projections here.
Apologize, would you go back one more time over the sports wagering piece of that? Some of it can be taken back and some cannot be taken back.
Yeah. So 80% of sports wagering revenue that come in years ago is slated to go towards the lottery. I can't speak to the other 20%. That's got other purposes. But that 80% goes towards the lottery, and now it's going to that K-12 construction fund to help schools that are in distressed counties get repairs and maintenance dollars that they need for their schools, a great cause. However, if there is a deficit, and let's say that 87.5 million is what's projected this year, up to that total of 87.5 could go towards covering that lottery deficit. So it's all in legislation, it's all could be there for lottery if necessary. But there's other news coming out about sports wagering. So lottery revenue is projected to be down or flat. This week we heard in the sports wagering budget hearing that prop betting, I'm sure there's another term for that. And by the way, this is not my world. I do not participate in these activities. But prop betting, the ability to bet on what tie Secretary Hargit's going to wear at the next commission meeting, those type of bets are growing in nature. And right now, to my understanding, it's not regulated. And the sports betting administration is anticipating revenue for sports wagering going down potentially over time as well. So lottery is projected to be flat or going down. Sports wagering may as well due to other forms of gambling, quite frankly.
Just a couple of comments. I'm glad you brought up the props betting or the predictions market, because that's having an impact on the sports wagering monies that were coming in. And also, if we were having this conversation 18 to 24 months ago, nobody knew what Poly Market was or Cauchy in the state of Tennessee. But now you've got people who, are making bets on was Maduro going to be taken down? You know, or what's going to happen? Is there going to be a regime change in Iran? Even to I listened to a podcast the other day, somebody actually bet on whether or not our Lord and Savior is going to come by December 31st of 2027. They actually put money on that.
Wow.
So, I mean, those things, and by the way, you can also go and bet on who's going to win the basketball game tonight. And so that's competing against those dollars that we've been counting over sports wagering. I also think it's important to mention that our lottery has taken a long time to mature. I think it's probably had the longest ramp to maturity of any lottery that I've ever heard of. I mean, typically they mature 7, 8, maybe 10 years. Ours has had a much longer run than that. So things have been really good for a long time. And Treasurer and Comptroller and I serve on the state funding board. Of course, we hear these estimates every year. And frankly, for years now, I've been waiting to see the kind of decline we have seen. And somehow or another, they pull a rabbit out of the hat, and we have a big award. You know, so more people play, revenues go up. And then last year, we finally saw one of those years where they didn't. It sounds like it's recovering beyond projections this year. But, you know, while growth is slowing, the demands that people continue to put on the amount of dollars that we have are outpacing that. So I thought it was a fantastic presentation that even I could understand. So thank you, Dr. Gentile.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I'd like to bring up now Paige Elliott, our Acting Chief Strategy Officer, to talk about, again, this is intended to be a primer of the portfolio program, because as we come back to you with conversations on this, we want you to be as well-equipped as possible, and please don't hesitate to call, text, email me anytime, and whenever you have questions. Paige?
Thank you, Dr. Gentile. Good morning, Chair Scarlett and Commissioners. So as Director Gentile mentioned, THEC staff have prepared a memo to the chairs of the education committees of the House and the Senate that serves as a primer on all things Tennessee Education Lottery Scholarship, or TELS. This memo, which you have a copy of, will be shared with the legislature today. Currently, the full TELS portfolio includes 13 scholarship programs. Each program has varying eligibility, application, and maintenance requirements, and each program awards different aid amounts. And that's one of the things that we recognize, is that this is rather complex. These details are communicated to students in a variety of ways, but one of the best sources is our collegefortn.org website. Additionally, each program is included in the Department of Finance and Administration's Office of Evidence and Impacts Program Inventory, which serves as a mechanism for reporting annual expenditures and outcomes data for each scholarship. I say all that to kind of set the stage of what I'm going to talk about, which is we're going to look at the top 5 programs in the portfolio and kind of give you a high-level understanding of what those programs are, what their eligibility requirements are, the award amounts, so that you can begin to be familiarized with the options in front of us as we look to those recommendations that Stephen mentioned earlier. So I'll detail the 5 largest programs in the TELS portfolio, share that high-level overview, and share the available outcomes data that we have for each of these programs. And then we'll close with a look at how expenditures and the number of students served has changed in the last 8 years. So you can start to see that picture here for the full TELS portfolio, where the bars represent the total aid amount awarded each year in millions of dollars, and the line depicts the number of students receiving aid. You'll see the same format of graph for each of the programs that we're about to walk through. In the 2015-16 aid year, 21,135 students received some form of TELS aid, totaling $324.1 million. 10 years later, that number of students served has consistently grown, with the exception of a pandemic-related dip in the 2021-22 year. Last year, 169,412 students received $505 million in aid from the Tennessee Education Lottery Scholarship. The largest program in the TELS portfolio is the Hope Scholarship. The Hope Scholarship recognizes and promotes both academic achievement in high school and the importance of a post-secondary education by providing scholarships to Tennessee's best and brightest students. Tennessee residents who graduate from an eligible Tennessee high school must earn a 3.0 high school grade point average or a 21 on the ACT to be eligible for the Hope Scholarship. Hope eligible institutions include both public and private schools in Tennessee. Effective for the 22-23 aid year, award amounts were increased to $1,600 per term for students enrolled at community colleges and $22,050 for freshmen and sophomore students at four-year institutions. Juniors and seniors at four-year institutions get an increased award amount of $2,850 per term. This change in award amounts is why you see that jump in expenditures in 22-23, while recipient counts inched up slowly following the pandemic. Gratefully, in the most recent year, we have exceeded pre-pandemic student counts with over 50,000 students receiving just the base Hope Scholarship. I'll also take a moment of personal privilege to say that I was a grateful recipient of the Hope Scholarship back in the day. In terms of outcomes, 62% of first-time Hope recipients in fall 2023 retained their scholarship into the second year. And retention in higher education more broadly, even for students who don't renew their scholarship, remains higher for those first-time Hope recipients than for the full freshman cohort. The four-year graduation rate for the Hope Scholarship recipients in the fall 2019 cohort was 47%, and 3/4 of those students maintained their Hope Scholarship through graduation. By year 5, which is the final year of scholarship eligibility that Stephen mentioned earlier, the Hope recipient graduation rate for the 2019 cohort rose to 57%, so a pretty big jump, 10 percentage points in that final year of eligibility. Hope also has 2 supplement programs. The General Assembly Merit Scholarship, or GAMS, is a supplement to the Hope Scholarship that recognizes the achievement of high-achieving high school students and provides extra funds to encourage those students to remain in Tennessee for post-secondary education. In addition to the eligibility requirements for the base Hope Scholarship, to qualify for the GAMS supplement, students must have at least a 3.75 high school GPA and score at least a 29 on the ACT. GAMS provides an additional $500 per term. You'll see here again the impacts of the increased award levels in the 22-23 year. And notably, student participants in GAMS has not rebounded to its pre-pandemic height. The nearly 8,600 students who received GAMS last year is about 480 students short of that peak we saw in 2020-21. The second supplement to the Hope Scholarship is the Aspire Award, which provides extra assistance to low-income Tennesseans who meet Hope eligibility requirements. To qualify for the Aspire Award supplement, students must have a family-adjusted gross income of $36,000 per year or below. Aspire provides an additional $250 per term to community college students and $750 per term to students at four-year institutions. GAMS and Aspire do not stack. Students receive the larger of one or the other if they are eligible for both supplements. That is a pretty small student group. As we have observed in other spheres, low-income students were particularly impacted by the pandemic, and so the count of student participants here certainly demonstrates that same trend. In addition, that income threshold for Aspire eligibility has remained unchanged over time at $36,000 a year. As we've seen in the broader economic situation, as inflation has increased in recent years, fewer students fall below this income threshold. So that's the other reason for that low participation or kind of flatlining participation numbers. The second largest program in the TELS portfolio is the Dual Enrollment Grant. The grant provides financial assistance so that students may participate in college-level coursework while in high school. It is funded on a per-course basis, and eligible students can use it at eligible public and private Tennessee institutions. The Dual Enrollment Grant aims to have more high school students earning college credit, matriculating into higher education, and completing credentials. Students taking courses at a community college or university must be in their junior or senior year of high school to qualify for the grant, but freshmen and sophomores can use the grant for courses at a TCAP, a change initiated by the General Assembly for the 22-23 aid year. This expansion to freshmen and sophomores led to over 20,000 students using the dual enrollment grant at TCATS in the 24-25 aid year, compared to approximately 5,300 students in the 21-22 aid year. So a lot of this explosive dual enrollment grant growth that we're seeing is in the TCAT sector. The dual enrollment grant covers tuition for the first 5 dual enrollment courses that students take, in addition to applicable access fees. For students 6th through 10th dual enrollment courses, the award amount is $100 per credit hour. At TCATS, the award amount is the cost of tuition for up to 1,296 clock hours, which generally covers a 1-year TCAT program. In terms of outcome, the grant does appear to support post-secondary enrollment. Approximately 82% of high school graduates from the class of 2024 who received the dual enrollment grant seamlessly enrolled in higher education upon high school graduation, compared to 56% of the overall class of 2024. Better understanding this mechanism, though, is one of our future research priorities. Technically, Tennessee Promise is the next largest TELS program. However, unlike other TELS programs, Tennessee Promise is endowed and funded by earnings off of the endowment. As I'm sure you're familiar with, and in fact some emerging research suggests that our students are most familiar with as well, Tennessee Promise is a last dollar scholarship that covers tuition and mandatory fees not covered by other gift aid. It can be used at Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology, community colleges, and toward associate degree programs at select universities. Promise participation and expenditures have contracted since 2020-21, and due to the last dollar nature of the program, expenditures are not quite as neatly correlated with student counts as for some of our other programs. In terms of outcomes, we do see a sizable group of students apply for Tennessee Promise, maintain their eligibility, and enroll in post-secondary, despite getting $0 in payments from the program, again because of that last dollar structure. These students do have access, though, to mentorship support and to the other features of the program, which is why students are encouraged to complete all of those eligibility milestones to maintain their scholarship and kind of keep it as a backup in case their financial situation changes. So I will note that these student counts here are students actually receiving non-zero payments from the Promise program. Over time, we've seen more Promise students enrolling at TCATS. For the 2024-25 cohort, about 1/5 of students were enrolled at a TCAT. In total, over 18,000 students from the last 5 Promise cohorts have earned a credential, and over 8,000 Promise students from these cohorts have transferred on to a 4-year institution.
Paige, if I may, real quick. Even though Tennessee Promise is not lottery funded, it is endowment funded, what we do with the lottery portfolio, if we reduce the levels of scholarship, for instance, because Tennessee Promise is a last dollar scholarship, reductions in other scholarships will increase the expenditure of Tennessee Promise. Just want to draw your attention to that there are some overlaps in the levers here.
That's in my notes later, so Stephen and I didn't coordinate very well on that, but thank you for the clarification. But that is one of the things that we want to examine is that intersection of the programs. How many students are in multiple of these programs? And so when we pull one lever, how does that impact a different program? Okay. The Tennessee Reconnect Grant is a last dollar scholarship providing tuition and mandatory fee-free community college for financially independent Tennesseans who want to pursue an associate degree or certificate. Tennessee Reconnect facilitates adult and independent students beginning or returning to post-secondary education to secure the credentials needed in today's workforce. Tennessee Reconnect can be used at 2-year institutions or in associate degree programs at eligible 4-year institutions by students who are 23 years of age or older or are classified as independent on the FAFSA. Students must not have previously earned an associate or higher degree and must enroll in at least 6 credit hours to be eligible to receive Tennessee Reconnect. You'll also see in your memo that TCAT Reconnect is classified as a separate scholarship, similar idea, but for students enrolling at TCATs. Tennessee Reconnect grant participation and expenditures have held steady in recent years, although again, we need to find out what the secret sauce is at Columbia State. Often we look to the broader economy to tell us what to expect in terms of adult post-secondary enrollment. While returning to education was often difficult for adult learners during the pandemic due to the myriad of responsibilities that they shouldered, future changes to the broader economic situation could induce more adults to return to higher education. So typically when the economy gets worse, more adults go back to school. If we see a change in our economic situation in coming years, we might see these participation numbers change. Since the introduction of the Tennessee Reconnect grant in 2018-19, recipients have gone on to earn over 40,000 credentials. And then finally, the fifth and final major TELS program that I want to highlight is the Wilder-Nafee Technical Skills Grant. This grant provides financial assistance for students pursuing their first certificate or diploma program at a TCAT. Eligible students receive $2,000 per aid year to defray the cost of their program until they complete their technical certificate or technical diploma. As we've seen in other programs, TCAT enrollments have grown in recent years, and this growth is then reflected in the number of aid recipients in the Wilder-Nafee program. In the 2023-24 aid year, 4,318 credentials were conferred to Wilder-Nafee recipients, which was a 14% increase over the previous aid year. So to bring it all together, here you'll see a comparison of each of these programs and their growth in expenditures over the last decade.
So, I'm sorry, can I have a clarifying question real quick?
Yeah.
You said that Tennessee Reconnect is only for adults 23 years of age, just for community colleges, but is Wilder-Nafee the TCAT version of that?
No. Wilder-Nafee is available to any student at a TCAT. There is also TCAT Reconnect, which is available only to adult students at a TCAT.
That's not part of this, it doesn't come out of this fund?
It is a TELS program, it's just small, it's not in the top
Tiny.
5, it's smaller, yeah.
Okay,
We'll, I have a table with all 13 in just a moment.
thank you.
And I would defer further questions on Wilder-Nafee and TCAT Reconnect to the experts in the back of the room. Lots of students are getting both is the short answer. So the Hope Scholarship, including its supplements, and the dual enrollment grant do represent the majority of increased expenditures over the last 5 or 10 years. And here you can also get a sense of the scale of the Hope program relative to others. So when we're thinking about expenditures, Hope is the majority by far. Similarly, this graphic, same concept, but depicts the number of students served by each program over the last decade. With the exception of Tennessee Reconnect, which is one of the newest TELS programs, each program has grown the number of students served. This also illustrates the drastic growth in the number of students receiving dual enrollment grants. So that comparison between the expenditures of Hope really outpacing other programs. Here, though, when we look at it by students served, Hope and the dual enrollment grant are a little bit more in line. And then finally, as promised, I want to present a similar perspective for all 13 programs in the TELS portfolio. This table shows the 2025 expenditures for each program and 1-year, 5-year, and 10-year percentage changes. Growth in expenditures are shown in green, while contractions in programs are shown in red. The most notable growth in expenditures has been the medium and long-term growth in the dual enrollment grant and middle college scholarship expenditures, as well as the Hope Foster Care Grant. Though middle college and foster care grants, as you can see, are both much smaller programs. Overall, TELS expenditures grew 7% year over year for 24-25, 27% when compared to 2020-21, and 56% compared to 2015-2016. I know it's a lot to take in, so brief pause. Next slide is same concept, but student headcounts, students served by each of these programs. Once again, the most notable growth has occurred in the same 3 programs, the dual enrollment grant, middle college scholarships, and the Hope Foster Care Grant. Year-over-year growth in recipients for 24-25 matches growth in expenditures at 7%, and 5-year growth in headcounts is 12%. Compared to 2015-16, 40% more students are impacted by TELS scholarships, bringing us to nearly 170,000 students in Tennessee receiving support to attend our state's public and private institutions. So what comes next? Director Gentile mentioned that this memo is part one of what we intend to accomplish this year. As we mentioned, we will examine the scope of intersections between current aid programs to look at how changes to one program might impact students also receiving another. We also want to examine more robust student outcomes data and build strong evidence for these scholarship programs. Our work that you've heard about before with the University of Michigan, for example, will support these questions, and we intend to bring you results from that partnership at a meeting later this year. Finally, we will work to build consensus around recommendations for program modifications that put students first and prioritize evidence. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but we would also love to hear any suggestions from you for what to consider for further research.
Mr. Rags.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To be clear, the only thing I know about gambling is anytime I've done it, I've lost. So with that being said, let me toss this thought out. Dr. Gentile, you were talking about how wagering now, and Secretary Hargett, wagering now has gone away from maybe not necessarily just sports betting, but other types of betting. Is there any way that you could tax that the same type of fashion that you tax sports gambling, or other than just needing the General Assembly to approve it?
Well, I'm no attorney, but I did watch Law and Order one time. So obviously, and Treasurer I know knows a lot more about this than I do. Right now those prediction markets are not regulated by states. It's the CTFC, is that what they're regulated by? Treasurer Lillard. And also, I would really count the Attorney General to opine about whether or not you could even think about offering that. I think some people were surprised years ago when we were able to allow sports betting, and it was deemed to be a game of skill rather than a game of chance.
Yeah.
So that's a much bigger question than I'm capable of answering.
You look at how we're growing as a state and how these programs are growing, and I've spoken repeatedly about how proud that we should all be about access to our higher education institutions. As you begin to look at cutting those awards and doing different things, I would also hope that we would look at additional revenue streams on alternative type activities rather than housing or food perhaps. So if you were going to gamble in some other ways, I don't know why we couldn't potentially do that as well. So just a thought.
What other thoughts or questions or comments do we have on this topic? Mr. James?
Sorry.
Mr. Dieter?
Should I go ahead and go?
Yes.
I was wondering, and this might be too far off. I was just thinking back to my personal experience with the Hope Scholarship, and it definitely aided in me choosing to stay in state as opposed to going out of state. Is there a way that you could potentially find out from high school students how much of an effect the Hope Scholarship has on their choice to stay in school in Tennessee? I'm not really sure how much that would help make a case for either way, but I'm just wondering if that's something that you would want to consider, because it's clear that it keeps students in, but I'm wondering how much of an impact it has, I'm not really sure if that's something that would want to be considered.
No, that is a brilliant suggestion. And in fact, my colleague Josh Skiles is in the midst of a PhD dissertation that is doing student interviews on that exact question. What do students understand in Tennessee about our financial aid portfolio? How does it impact their decision making? I believe that student interviews have wrapped up and that we will be able to share that information with the commission most likely July, but this will certainly be a part of our reporting here, is how we think about the student experience of these scholarships. So you are on exactly the right track. And I'm happy that we are already working on that piece.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Mr. James?
Could we back up 2 slides? All right, maybe one more. Yeah, there we are. So just looking at these numbers, it's pretty staggering to see where we've come over the course of the last decade, and especially in the number of students served. on the dual enrollment grant. If we're thinking about, if we're thinking about other areas to explore and things to drill down on, I would love to see the research on how many of these students finish a credential. Is this, are we including here also TCAT dual enrollment? That's
Yes, this
included?
does include TCATs, which is most of the driver of that drastic increase in the last 3 years.
And to also keep in mind that statutory changes have made it so that those students don't have to go to the back of the waiting list when they graduate and they've got half of their credential completed, right? So I think, first of all, we need to think about these a little differently. And I'd love to see what the completion rates are by the TCAT. So, you know, folks come out with a TCAT credential, they've got in many cases a 90% plus placement rate. These TCATs and the dual enrollment at the TCATs is incredibly essential to rural Tennessee. It is, these colleges of applied technology are in many cases the key to not hollowing out our rural counties. So to see how that would work and how many of those go on to completion, and then also to take a look in the, on the academic side and contrast those. I think we will end up having to come to a place where there will be a core of dual enrollment courses that we have to get to, but every little bit of information to drill down on that, I think, is useful. And I gotta say, it's wonderful, I think, to see the expansion that's happened with these middle colleges. But, you know, we can't be blithe about any of it, can we? Because these are, you know, this is a finite resource that we have.
Mr. Wood?
I guess, has there been any, any analysis into, you did dial back the dual enrollment, then what impact does that have on those seeking scholarship programs? Because effectively, they might just be waiting another few years before.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and certainly one of those program interaction pieces. Trickier to get at because it's a counterfactual of, you know, the students not doing the thing, but I think we certainly can look into existing academic literature about that.
Or comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner.
That chart was not distributed as part of this package, right? We don't have that chart. Good.
We'll post the PowerPoint on the SharePoint.
Oh, okay. Good.
Madam Chair, you know, a program need has never met an income stream in state government that it didn't like, you know. And this is an illustration of that exact thing, depending on how you look at it here. And it just emphasizes to me the need to look at, you know, for instance, the effectiveness, as some people have raised here today, of these programs. You know, how many of them are, what is the completion rate for a credential or a degree or whatever from it? And also beginning to recognize the fact that over long term, the programs that have been most successful, like Tennessee Promise is an example, the Chairs of Excellence program is another one in Tennessee, that they have an endowment, you know, and in Treasury, we've long been advocates for establishing an endowment fund concept to fund some of these needs, if you will. That's not going to get you through the pain of the immediate situation of having to fit the square peg of expenses in the round hole of revenue here, but it will, in the longer term, make sure that you have some stable funding base at some level that can help you achieve the program ends that you want, which is a completion rate and one that actually positively affects Tennessee's workforce needs. That's another thing. So I really think THEC could help a lot in all of this by developing some formulaic approach to this that says, here's the formula by which we evaluate the effectiveness of these programs, what we consider to be effective, whether it's the completion rate or whether it meets the workforce need or some combination of both of those, and then other factors that are involved, like serving the communities in Tennessee, like rural counties that are more distressed than others, for instance. All of those things probably should be taken into account. But again, I think it's going to mean that this is a good time for state government to reevaluate how we establish some type of endowment concept for this, and whether it's through the sale of surplus state properties or other things that begin that effort, that over the longer term can meet us up with the proper funding levels at some future point.
Really like that. Treasurer, any other comments or questions? I want to double down a little bit on what Mr. James and also the treasurer just mentioned, is kind of looking at how all of these, what are the journeys that students take, or what are the pathways they're taking along these different programs within these institutions we have, but also looking at that effectiveness, access, effectiveness, completion, placement, where we have that information. But it's also something that you touched on, leading with ideas. I think this is where I think THEC has a big opportunity, is lead with ideas of what can be or what the potential opportunity is, whether that's an endowment or whether it's thinking about how we're funding this sort of work differently. What are those different scenarios? And there's some of these are in statute, but are these the right things we should be doing? And if they're not, then what are the ideas for thinking about serving these students more effectively moving forward based on the programs that we have within our institutions? So food for thought. Anything else? Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Elliott.
you.
We really appreciate the time. And also you, Dr. Jeff. Put down. We are at our final agenda item, which is other business. If any commission member has any other business, now is the time to speak up. Let us know. Hearing none, this concludes our agenda. Our next commission meeting will be Friday, May 15th in Nashville. Is that correct? Okay, we are adjourned.